Okay, perfect. So we will go ahead and get started. I am Dr. Tiara Price, which still feels weird to say, but it's been almost a year since I graduated, so I need to get comfortable with it. And welcome to Black DVM Network's event with Dr. Brittany Moore Henderson, Am I a Competitive Applicant? So before we get started with that, I just want to make a couple of announcements. If you guys are not familiar with Black DVM Network, please check out our website, peruse. There's a lot of things that you can do on there, but Black DVM Network is really a platform and a community for the empowerment of Black veterinary professionals. We work with technicians, assistants, students, all kinds of people that are interested in vet med to help them be healthy, happy, successful professionals. And that is our number one goal. We work some with pre-vet students. This is one of our few pre-vet student events. Most of our events are focused on current veterinary professionals, but for pre-vet students, we do provide this robust community for you to ask people questions, meet people, figure out what their journeys are like, and really get a sense of how you can piece together a journey that makes sense for you, right? So it doesn't have to look like what you hear all the time. It can look like something that is tailored to what you want from veterinary medicine. And so with that being said, we do offer memberships for everyone. Our success and community memberships are for Black veterinary professionals with the two options. The community membership is for anyone who would like to connect with the rest of the community, who would like to attend events. Our community members will be getting events probably one every other month. And so those will be available. And then our success members are people with a goal in mind. And so we're really looking for those people that are driven, that want to finally take charge of their journey in their life, but maybe they're lacking the resources or the support to do so. And that's where we come in to support you guys and to provide people with what we call guides, which are our crossover between a mentor and a coach. So we're there for you to guide you along the way. And that's for our success members. The other memberships we have for non-Black or non-veterinary professionals are the Friends and Corporate Friends membership. And so our events are open to all of our members, but we do ask that people sign up for membership to attend our events. One, because we're a really beautiful community and we would love to have you, but two, because when reality sets in, it takes money to put all of this on. And we need people to contribute to our community in order to keep it thriving. So the community membership is $25 a year. And if anyone has trouble with that, please talk to me, because we can use your labor and your creativity also. And then the other thing is that we are about a third way through this year, a quarter. I don't know. I'm really bad at math. So we've gotten into this year some months, right? But we're still selling this calendar that we have, and all of the proceeds from this calendar go to a veterinary student scholarship that fund that is actually being put on by CARE, the Companion and Animals for Reform Equity Group. They've raised a lot of money, but we are still trying to help them by selling our calendars. And on each page, there is an amazing Black veterinary professional for inspiration, so that you're celebrating Black History Month or Black Lives all year. And with all of that being said, okay, thank you, Matt. So my math wasn't too far off, because I was like a third, a quarter, where are we?
You can't get it wrong either way.
At least we're not halfway through the year. At least I know that for sure. We're not halfway there yet. But anyways, to get started, we are going to be talking about some of the questions that pre-veterinary students ask themselves when applying to veterinary school. And our speaker today is Dr. Brittany Moore Henderson, who I absolutely adore. And I know that I adore her because I met her at 5 a.m. on a plane leaving out of Kansas City. And we started talking, and I don't think that there could have been anyone else that approached me, or, we started having a conversation at 5 a.m. that I would have actually talked to. But she told me she was a vet, and I was in vet school at the time. We were leaving a manners conference, and so I loved her since that day, and I'm so glad that she's here. She's currently the director of admissions at Mississippi State University College of Veterinary Medicine, and she's been in this position since 2018. She earned her Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Jackson State University in 2012, and her DVM from Mississippi State University in 2016. During her time as a veterinary student, Dr. Henderson dedicated her time to not only achieving academic excellence, but also to creating opportunities for current and future students by developing programs and organizations that promote diversity and inclusion. She's also a clinical instructor in the MSU Animal Health Center, which she provides veterinary clinical service while teaching veterinary and veterinary technology students. She is currently in Starkville, Mississippi with her husband, daughter, and 4 pets. So as you guys have heard, she's more than qualified to talk about this subject. Please, I would encourage you guys to ask her any questions that you have at the end of this, because she is a really great resource. So start thinking about those now so that we can get those in before the session ends. But yeah, without further ado, Dr. Brittany Moore Henderson.
Thanks, Tiara. Thank you so much. And thanks for inviting me to speak to everyone. Definitely, I am, as Tiara said, I've been in my current position at Mississippi State since 2018, but I graduated in 2016. So I'm sure you all are like, in 2 years, you're, in this type of position. But I have to tell you a little bit more about my history. But I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Hopefully I do it right. Okay. Cool. All right. You all should see my PowerPoint. Please let me know if you do not. I'm trying to find a face. Okay. So, like I said, pretty much the presentation, what I'm talking to you all today is, I know that you all ask yourselves a lot of questions. I remember asking myself the same question: am I a competitive applicant? And I know this is the question in which the answer is based off basically whatever your answer is, that determines whether or not you're going to apply whichever cycle. So it's important for you to definitely ask yourself this question prior to applying for veterinary school. So of course, I work at Mississippi State, but today I am coming to you not as a representative of Mississippi State, just coming to you as just a mission director, and just providing you with pertinent information that I hope will assist you in your journey to veterinary school. So just a little bit about myself. I know Tiara mentioned some things about me, but I'm going to give you some information about me now, and then I'm going to talk about myself later on at the very end to give you a better idea of some things about me. So of course, I went to Jackson State, which is a HBCU in Jackson, Mississippi, where I finished my bachelor's, and then went ahead on to Mississippi State for my DVM degree. Of course, a week prior to starting veterinary school, I got married. That, of course, made things a whole lot, difficult, but it's doable for those of you who might have a significant other. But I went and finished vet school in 2016, and now I have 4 pets, and then I have this pretty little girl right here who's about 14 months right now. But like I said, later I'll give you some more information about me. So let's get started. Of course, you think about what it is that you need to do to be competitive. I have broken it down into 2 huge steps in which you should think about when applying to veterinary school and determining whether or not you're a competitive applicant. Of course, the biggest thing is preparation. You'd have to definitely prepare to apply for veterinary school. This can't be something that you think of a month before the application deadline. This is something that you have to prepare over a good period of time. Of course, trying to get a better understanding of the application, about the requirements of various veterinary schools, and then, of course, all the experiences that you need when applying to veterinary school as well. And then the last thing is focus on the application, or what I usually say is just the execution phase. So you're looking at, of course, your application. You have prepared all that you can, and you know what all that you need to do. Now it's time to put all that information within your application, and then also reaching out to people who you want to write your letters of recommendation, and then thinking about your essays. And then, of course, grades is a factor in this. You're going to notice that throughout this presentation, I really don't say much about grades, but at the very end, I'll give you just a little snippet about grades. But pretty much when you're thinking about, are you competitive, is focused on these two steps. So preparation, understanding the application. So of course, when you're applying to veterinary school, there is two ways in which you can apply. Of course, the main way is through VMCAS, which is the Veterinary Medical College Application Service. And then the other way is if you are a Texas resident. Texas has their own application process. But for VMCAS, VMCAS, pretty much any accredited school other than those Texas schools you can find within VMCAS. So any international schools, some of them are in VMCAS, as well as some Canadian schools are also within VMCAS. But where you would go to find this information is through AAVMC, and this is the governing body for veterinary medicine, pretty much just like AVMA. And I'm hoping that you can see my screen, see what I just put in front of you all. But this is the website in which you would go to when applying for veterinary school. You see down here at the bottom, apply to veterinary school. This will take you to VMCAS. But you also see a link at the top, becoming a veterinarian. It tells you how to apply. If you click on how to apply, you see some valuable information right here. You can get an overview. You can look at application instructions, determine the fees associated with applying. You can also see an applicant guide. That is very important because that breaks down every component of the application and lets you know how to complete your application. So that's very important. Definitely take a look and put that as a bookmark in your web browser, because you will need to utilize that quite a bit. And it has some very valuable information within it. You also can see a sample application. So for those of you who are not actually applying this cycle, if you just want to get an idea of how the VMCAS application looks, you can go here and view a sample application. Then it gives you information about recommendation, how your transcripts is verified, and then of course the VMCAS Help Center. Then, as I said, the TMDSAS is the Texas Medical and Dental School Application Services. This is where you apply if you are applying to Texas A&M or Texas Tech. Texas Tech is one of the new colleges of veterinary medicine, but you will apply through this application process. And I'll click on that just to show you. I don't think I heard anyone that said that they are a Texas resident or but if it doesn't matter if you're not, if you're applying to Texas A&M or Texas Tech, you will have to go this route. And they will give you information. You see apply now up here as well. You just hit that and they will give you different information. They also have an application handbook. So definitely, like I said, if you're planning on applying this cycle, you definitely want to make this a part of your, make this a bookmark so that you can review this handbook. So when you're going through preparing yourself, of course, like I said, you see all the handbooks that they have for VMCAS and for Texas schools. You want to definitely make that a part, like I said, of your your bookmark on your browser so that you can always refer back to that as you're going through your application. The thing is, when you're looking at applying to various schools, you want to go to a particular site. Of course, you want to refer to various websites of veterinary colleges, but there is a simple way of trying to review the various veterinary schools, and that is through VMSAR. And VMSAR is the Veterinary Medical School Admissions Requirements. And you can go to this site and be able to compare various schools. So this is how it looks. You can go here, and any, like I said, majority of all colleges of veterinary medicine are within this. Even Texas schools are in this, even though they do not go through VMCAS, but they are still listed in this on this site. So if you go there, you can click on a school and then get quite a bit of information about each program, their requirements and such. All of that information is there. And then now you can actually compare various schools based off of like their prerequisites and other requirements in which they have. And like I said, of course, you can utilize that particular site, but it's still very important that you go to the individual veterinary schools websites to see all their requirements. And because this is, like I said, one of those steps to preparing you for that application cycle. Of course, you're not going to be applying to every school. I would encourage you not to apply to every school. The average applicant applies to 5 veterinary schools. So for you, you want to go through and look through the various schools and determine which one you would like to apply to. Of course, majority of students are going to apply to their in-state school. Then you're going to usually choose some other schools that you may have some interest in. Maybe you've gone to those states, or maybe you know friends or family that have been associated with those various schools. Of course, other factors play a part. Financial, how much tuition is for those particular schools, how their curriculum is set up. It's various things, various factors that play a role in determining what schools that you want to apply to. But I always encourage students to always go and visit these veterinary schools. You do not want to apply just on a whim. You kind of want to get an idea of the school in which you're applying to. So either you go and visit, or you get in contact with the admissions office of those particular schools and talk to students and talk to faculty and staff so that you get an idea of that university. Because like I said, you're going to be spending 4 years at that particular school. So you want to make sure that it's a good fit for you and that you're not miserable those 4 years. So like I said, this is one of the first steps in preparing to apply for veterinary school. So of course, if you go to the various websites for veterinary schools, these veterinary schools usually have some type of infographics that shows you the data from previous classes or previous classes that have been matriculated into their school. So for instance, right here, I have 3 infographics for these schools. I have Kansas State, I have Michigan State, as well as Mississippi State. So their information usually provides you with how many applicants applied that particular cycle, gives you an idea of how many in-state students they take versus out-of-state students, give you an idea of their class size, as well as the GPA of the average GPA of students that are accepted to their school, and also usually give you information about where their students are applying from. So going to these various websites of these veterinary schools, you can find this information, and it can help you get a better idea of whether or not this is a school in which you want to apply to. So definitely be in contact with the admissions offices if you don't see this information, to actually get that, because that's very important and something that you definitely want to think about when applying. So another big component, of course, is experiences. Of course, when you first realized that you wanted to be a veterinarian, it was something that sparked that interest. So of course, when applying to veterinary school, you have to have different types of experiences. So what the VMCAS application looks for is animal experience, veterinary experience, research experience, extracurricular activities, volunteer and community enrichment, as well as employment. So those are the different experiences that you would need to have to put in within your application. So depending on when you have started or first realized that you want to be a veterinarian, at that point is the time to begin thinking about what experiences that you need to gain in order to get into veterinary school. Because with the various experiences, it gets you a better understanding of the profession and what it is that you want to do within the profession. So looking at animal experiences. So of course, animal experience is everything working with the animal. So usually animal husbandry. So of course, animal shelters, working at various farms. If you are a 4-H'er, that qualifies as well. Working at zoos as like a zookeeper or just a volunteer. Animal sanctuaries, aquariums, even animal science labs. All that experience can count as animal experience. So it's very important that you document all those hours of experience. So if you need to basically get a spreadsheet or an app. I think Cornell has a new app right now that you can use to keep up with all your experiences. That's something that you want to do, because when it's time for you to apply, you don't want to be guessing how many hours you have. You want to be able to go back into a document and determine, okay, this is how many hours of I got in this area and such and so forth. So it's very important that you keep up and document these particular hours. Then of course you have your veterinary experience. Veterinary experience is under the direct supervision of a veterinarian. I must also say that depending on the schools in which you're applying to, some will actually count a veterinary technician, that anything working on a vet tech can be a veterinary experience. However, you will need to check with that school in which you're applying to make sure they look at it from that standpoint. Majority of schools that I think of are looking for this type of experience under a veterinarian. So of course, anytime that you're working with a veterinarian, those hours count. So of course you can work with veterinarians in a clinical practice, but you also have non-traditional routes in which you can work with veterinarians. So of course, you have a state veterinarian. They have a different perspective. You have in research labs, you have veterinarians that are conducting research. You have diagnostic labs, of course, zoos, teaching hospitals. Those are places in which you usually can find a veterinarian and you can gain experience under them. I definitely say you want to have a diverse amount of experience. So you don't want to have just all small animal experience. Of course, I understand that everyone can't get a variety of experience. And of course, you should make that known on your application. However, if you can, and if you're in a place where you can definitely get a variety of experience, definitely do, because the thing about getting a different perspective, you're getting different perspectives. So of course, a small animal veterinarian may have a different perspective than a large animal veterinarian or a state veterinarian and so forth. So you want to make sure you get diverse experience from different veterinarians so that you get an understanding of how veterinary medicine is for them. So that's the reason why we encourage you to get diverse experiences, because with all those experiences, you're gaining a good understanding of the veterinary profession so that you can see where it is that you want to be at the end of the day once you get your veterinary degree. Of course, research is another type of experience that you can get. Of course, this experience is not required by most schools. However, like I said, whatever school that you decide to apply to, you might want to look into that to see whether or not they require you to have research experience. But for most schools, it's not a requirement. It's just like a brownie point, basically. So if you have research experience, definitely put it. It looks good. Of course, you can work, it can be field or clinical based research. It doesn't have to be vet med related. It can be any type of research. So definitely include that on your application. Extracurricular activities, that's a big one. that's one of the things in which the committee, admissions committee looks at to see whether or not you're well-rounded. What all have you been involved in? Have you only been focused on your academics and you tend not to have participated in other extracurricular activities, or were you balancing both and then also working a job? Those are things in which the committee looks at. So of course, if you're a student athlete, you definitely want to say that on your application. If you're a part of the band, if you have various clubs that you become a part of. So like pre-vet club, we understand that every school doesn't have a pre-vet club. I came from a school, an undergraduate school, that did not have a pre-vet club. But all different clubs that you can be involved in, definitely be involved in them if you have that interest. Of course, you have other organizations that you can become a part of. So of course, if you were younger and you were a Boy Scout or Girl Scout, you can include that on your application. If you're a part of a sorority or a fraternity, definitely include that on your application as well. And then of course, intramural sports. But this is not a exclusive list. You definitely have other extracurricular activities that you can add to this. So of course, if you have a hobby, you can include that as well. So if you're maybe a painter or you're a photographer, add that onto your application as well. So anything that you are involved in extracurricular wise, include it on your application. Then volunteer and community enrichment. Of course, as a veterinarian, you have to have an orientation towards service. So this is, making you more well-rounded. So looking at what community service projects that you've been involved in is one of the things that admissions committee look at. So of course, if you have worked with the Boys and Girls Club or Habitat for Humanity, soup kitchens and food pantries, those are things in which the admissions committee is looking for. Not those specific things. Of course, this has to be things in which this is something that you may have a passion for. So making sure that you are thinking about all those things, that's very important when you're going to apply. Because like I said, the committee is looking for a well-rounded applicant. So you want to make sure that you're involved in these things in which you're involved in. Make sure there are things, like I said, that you are very passionate about. Don't just add things to become a part of things just because for your application. Do something in which you enjoy doing. Then employment. Of course, if you have worked throughout undergrad, you definitely want to put that, but any type of job position that you have, if you had work study, or if you worked at McDonald's or whatever, food restaurants, whatever, you want to make sure that you put that within your application. Of course, remember that if you worked at a veterinary clinic, of course, all of that is going to go under veterinary experience, depending on what that job was. But under employment, only thing that you're going to put is everything that is non-veterinary related underneath it. So getting into the next part about your application. So this is the execution part. What it is, you have prepared yourself from whenever point that you decided that you want to be a veterinarian up until now when you're about to get ready to actually apply. So looking at how the timeline of the application, usually this past 2 years, the application has opened up in January. So that's for the VMCAS. And I think Texas, they also open their application up around this time. I might be incorrect about that, but VMCAS definitely opens up their application in January now. And the reason for them opening up their application earlier is to allow applicants enough time, more time to complete their application. Of course, in January, when you go, if you're applying this particular application cycle, you go in and create an account. And then from that account, you go in and begin filling out your information. One thing that you can be doing right now is, of course, thinking about your letters of recommendation, who you want to write your letters for you. Go ahead and log in all your experiences, taking a look at that personal statement and begin working on it. And then, of course, requesting transcripts. And I have a asterisk beside that, because depending upon whether or not you are currently taking prerequisites will determine when you should actually send in your transcript. And why I bring that up is because MCAS only verifies transcripts once. So if you only went to have attended only one undergraduate university, and you're going to be taking courses during the summer, you may want to wait until at the end of that summer before you submit your transcript. Because if you submit your transcript right now, those courses in which you're going to be taking during the summer are not going to be included on your transcript, even if you submit that transcript after that time. Because like I said, MCAS only verifies transcripts once. And so in many schools, they only going to use that GPA from that transcript in which was verified. So it's very important for you to think ahead about that and whether or not you need to submit your transcript. Of course, if you have submitted, you have multiple schools that you have attended, you of course can go ahead and get those submitted, but the one in which the main school that you're currently attending, if you're going to be taking summer courses, wait until that summer has ended before you submit your transcripts. So like I said, between January and May is that time in which you're working on those various components of your application. When May comes, that is the time in which in the MCAS application, you can begin selecting the schools in which you want to apply to. And so that's that time when that opens up. And then of course, some schools have supplemental applications. Some of those supplemental applications are included within MCAS, but some of them are outside of MCAS. So it's important for you to make note of that because the supplemental application is additional to the MCAS application. And those are pretty much questions in which individual veterinary schools want to know from you. So it could be further essays or just further questions that they couldn't get from a generic application. So you definitely want to know whether or not there is a supplemental application and whether or not there's a supplemental application fee, because there are fees associated with some supplemental applications. So once May hits, you pretty much go ahead on and select the schools in which you want to apply to, determine whether or not you need to do a supplemental application and when you need to submit that supplemental application. Then August comes, and this is for me, I say that August is the time period in which you probably want to submit your application. And why I say this is you want to allow enough time for MCAS to verify your transcripts and then to let you know whether or not there's any components of your application that is missing. Of course, in MCAS, you can track whether or not your recommenders have submitted your recommendations. You can go in also to see whether or not, of course, your transcripts have all been received by MCAS. So you can keep track of those things. But like I said, in August, that's the perfect time for you to go ahead and submit. You can still go back in and make changes. Well, not make changes, but actually put in more experiences if you're still gaining experience. You can't change any experience that you previously put in, but you can add more experiences. So that's something that you can do. And like I said, submitting it in August just allows you some wiggle room just in case you have missed anything within your application. But usually the MCAS deadline is September, and usually it's mid-September. For this application cycle that we in for the class of 2026, that deadline is September the 15th. So in the last 2 years it's been, so I think they're going to probably keep that deadline to be the same, but of course you need to always check to make sure that deadline is the same. But like I said, doing it in August allows you some wiggle room just in case you need to make any changes to definitely your, letters of recommendation or so forth. So getting into talking about your letters of recommendation. And so you definitely want to choose your recommenders wisely. You want to have people in which have known you and know much about you. They can attest to the various characteristics that you have that makes you a great veterinarian. Of course, usually one of those letters of recommendations have to be from a veterinarian. So of course, any veterinarian in which you are gaining experience under, you want to make sure that you're gaining quality experience underneath them. And you're constantly asking them questions, being engaged in what you're doing. So that if you need to ask that veterinarian for a letter of recommendation, they feel comfortable giving you a actual recommendation. So that's very important when you're thinking about going through gaining that veterinary experience. But what I will show you is this something that you can also find on the VMCAS application. I mean, the VMCAS website, or more so the AAVMC website. Let's see if this opens for me. Let's see. Okay, I think you all should see this. Pretty much this is from this is, as you see, from 2014, but it's still on the VMCAS website, and it still pretty much provides the same information. But this is what your recommenders will have to complete for your letter of recommendation. So they put in information about themselves, and then they go in and they actually put in information. They ask the question, how long have you known or observed this applicant? Of course, it's better for them to have known you for at least greater than 1 year, I say. When it's less than 1 year, it's kind of like, do they really know you enough to be able to write you a letter of recommendation? So that, keep that in mind. That is one of the questions that have been asked of your recommender. And then it asks, in what capacity have you known them in as well? But then you're going to see there's various characteristics in which they are going to evaluate you on. I think a lot of students don't realize this. They only think that it's actual just a letter of recommendation that's been uploaded. But no, it's actually, they do an evaluation on these types of scales. And then they also do their letter of recommendation. So some of the criteria in which they are evaluating you on is, like you see, initiative, motivation for becoming a veterinarian, intellectual capacity, emotional stability, leadership, ability to work with others, and so forth. So these traits, you want to look at these traits, and whoever you want to write you a letter of recommendation, think about whether or not they can possibly evaluate you on these various traits. So that's a way to, when you're thinking about, like I said, the people in which you want to write your letter of recommendation, you want to base it off of these things. How long they have known you, what all traits can they actually evaluate you on. If they can only evaluate you on probably 5 of these traits, you might not want them to write your letter of recommendation or be a recommender for you, because they cannot evaluate you fully. So you definitely want to, of course, take this information and utilize it when you're thinking about the person in which you want to do your letter of recommendation. Let me see there. Cool. Starting me back. So like I said, that is going to be very important for you gaining that information. So of course, I used to say that having someone that is a faculty member, so a professor that you have had multiple courses under, they are always good to have to write a letter of recommendation for you. Of course, if you have a person that may know you based off of academics and then other extracurricular activities, so maybe like a faculty advisor, but who was also your professor or something like that, that's a good person to write your letter of recommendation. Or maybe it's been someone long ago that has constantly stayed in contact with consistently and updated them about what you have been doing, and you've been, like I said, being in touch with them. They're good people to write your letter of recommendation. Of course, it can be family that writes your letter, but anyone that you have history with that you think can attest to all those traits in which will make you a good veterinarian, they will definitely be a person to write your letter for you. And of course, one has to be a DVM. So of course, when you're going in, gaining all that veterinary experience, you just want to make sure that is always quality experience. Of course, most schools don't have a required amount of veterinary experience, but we still tell students that they need to have, at least a good amount. And I say a good amount is at least about 500 veterinary hours of experience. But Of course, if you have less than that, you are definitely wanting to make sure that every hour, all the time in which you're spending with a veterinarian is quality time. So you're constantly being engaged, asking questions, and just doing whatever you can to gain more knowledge about the profession. So getting into your essays, of course, this particular cycle, we have gone back to the personal statement. Of course, if you have applied previously, you may remember that there were 3 essay prompts that you had to answer. That is no more now. It has gone back. It has gone back to the personal statement. That's what I use when I apply for veterinary school. So you have that. Then you have an explanation statement, which not all students use, and you don't have to use it. And then there's a supplemental application, which may have essay questions on it, depending on the school in which you're applying to. So in that personal statement, what it is that you need to focus on. Of course, the thing is, why do you want to pursue a career in veterinary medicine? Usually when you answer that question, the thing that comes to mind is the first thought, why was it that you wanted to become a veterinarian? What was it that piqued your interest? Usually it's when you was a child and then you may have encountered your first animal or something like that. That is totally fine. You can go back to, that thought, what it was, how it felt for you, but you don't want to use your whole personal statement talking about that initial recollection that you have of when you want to become a veterinarian. You don't want to be all about fluffy puppies and kittens. You don't want to do that. You want to focus on the question at hand. What is it? Why do you want to pursue a career in veterinary medicine? Then how would you contribute to the veterinary profession? Have an idea of what it is that you want to do. Do you want to practice small animal medicine? What it is, what would you like to contribute to the field of small animal medicine? Is it, if you want to specialize in the area, do you want to help cure cancers? What is it that you want to do? Again, why are you a good candidate for veterinary school? Remember that this is going to be a generic personal statement. So you're going to be addressing this to all veterinary schools. So you want to definitely think about what it is that you think that you can provide to veterinary schools or bring to veterinary schools to make the profession great. So why are you a good candidate for veterinary school? What it is that you have, what do you possess that makes you a good veterinarian? So think about the fact that you have thousands of other applicants that are applying for a seat at veterinary schools. What is it that makes you unique? That is what you need to focus on to answer or to address the question. So all of these questions are questions in which you need to definitely address within your personal statement. And one thing that I'm going to also say, of course, you're going to answer those questions. But the thing to also remember is you need someone to review all of your essays. Anything you have written in your application, you want somebody to look over it for grammar, punctuation, as well as content. So that may mean that you may have more than 3 people that is looking at your information. So you have some English teachers, have them to look over for grammar and punctuation. But you may want to have your pre-vet advisor or mentor to look over it for content. So it's good to have multiple eyes, but you don't want to get too many, but you definitely want to get at least 3 people to possibly review your application. Your explanation statement, like I said, this is not a statement that everyone has to utilize, but I tell students to utilize it if they have some weakness within their application. Maybe it's grades, maybe it's you had some courses in which you had to withdraw from because of some type of particular incident or circumstance in your life. Or you maybe just had some type of interruptions within your studies or your experiences. You want to be sure to explain all of those things. I always say that I think that majority of students always can use the explanation statement. Not many use it though. So you want to think about, as you go and complete your application, go back and think about what is that I'm missing. What questions may the committee have that I have not addressed? Like I said, one of the major things in which students utilize that area for is their grades. Maybe they had to withdraw from multiple courses at a time, or maybe organic chemistry was that course that just gave you a lot of trouble. So you may have to withdraw from that, or you have to repeat that course multiple times. But what you should do is you can say, okay, I did take organic chemistry. It was a tough course for me, but this is what I did to prepare and make the better grade. So you want to say what happened and what you did to address those issues. So that is very important when using that explanation statement. You want to use it wisely. You don't want to use it for an excuse. You want to make sure that all the information you provide is factual information. And then, like I said, you have a supplemental application. That application, like I said, could have some additional essays on it. And some of those questions may be repetitive. So you might see questions on the supplemental application that is also on the generic application. And sometimes schools are definitely fine with that, but usually why they have a repetitive question is possibly because they are utilizing a different admissions program or something like that, in which they have to export information out, and that might be an easier way for them to export that information. So usually that's a common reason why you may see a repetitive question. So therefore, if you answer it prior, you can probably put that same answer in there for that question. But like I said, just like anything else, any other essay, you want to make sure that you have somebody checking over it. So going back and looking at becoming a competitive applicant, what all you are focusing on is, like I said, preparation is the biggest component. I think majority of you are about to get ready to apply, or you're going to apply not this cycle, but for the next cycle. You have time to be preparing yourself. Of course, we are in a month of March, so that means that you have 2 months before you're able to go in and begin selecting schools in which you want to apply to. So utilize these 2 months to begin working on your application. Of course, if you are a re-applicant, you probably can go into VMCAS and pull over your information from the previous cycle into this cycle. But of course, you want to go in and update your information. But like I said, remember that those essay prompts are no more. So you have a personal statement. So you already know that you're going to have to write a personal statement. And that is something that you definitely want to go ahead on and begin starting on. Work on it, send it to someone for a review. Like I said, you want them to review it for not only grammar and punctuation, but also content as well. Also, you want to make sure that you know the schools in which you're applying to. Like I said, don't apply to every college of veterinary medicine. Applying to vet school is very expensive. So you want to be cognizant of those schools and those fees that come with applying to multiple schools. So that is definitely one of the most important steps as well. And then, of course, utilizing those resources that you have. As I mentioned, AAVMC is a great resource. They have a lot of information about applying to veterinary school. So you want to make sure that you take their applicant handbook, and like I said, make it a part of make it a bookmark on your browser, because you want to constantly refer back to it as you're going through applying. You want to look at all those sections that they have to make sure that you are filling in that application correctly. As far as your experiences, making sure that you're reaching out to various people. I know that it's difficult in certain areas to gain certain experiences. And of course, that means that you may need to utilize that explanation statement so that the committee knows, hey, I want to get some large animal experience. However, I'm not in a location where I can get it, and I might not be financially able to go different places to gain that experience. But maybe what you want to do is call and talk to veterinarians, large animal veterinarians, interview them, and get a better idea of how they practice vet med. How is it different than other areas of vet med? That's something that you might want to think about doing. And then, as I said, the execution phase is pretty much that application. Looking at going through, making sure you have filled out everything like you needed to, and making sure that you have have people that can review it, to let you know if there's something that you need to change, or whether or not you didn't get your thoughts across like you wanted to. You definitely want to allow a lot of time for that. So it's very important that you start very early on in the process, so that you can allow time for individuals to complete review of your application, as well as those letters of recommendations, making sure they have enough time to actually submit that. Because remember, as far as with your letters of recommendation, you are in control of that. Because a person, a recommender, doesn't get it in on time, that still falls on you. So you want to make sure that you're staying in touch with the individuals you want to write your letter of recommendation, so that you know that they have an idea of when they need to get it submitted. So you constantly talking to them, letting them know when the deadline is, what they need to do to complete the evaluation, and so forth. So that is very important. And of course, that's all about staying on top of the timeline. Because like I said, August, you should strive to submit your application in August. However, I understand everybody can't do that. That's totally fine. But ultimately, August is just a good time to submit your application, to allow time for transcript verification and to determine whether or not there is something that you missed along the way. So of course, I went back to this particular slide because like I said, I didn't mention anything about grades or anything like that. But I did mention earlier about the transcript. So I'm not going to go back onto that. I talked about whether or not, if you was a re-applicant, what you need to do. So if you are a re-applicant, know right now is a good time to begin contacting those schools in which you applied to, because you can get a file review. Some schools do file reviews, some schools do not. So just depending on the school in which you applied to, you want to reach out to them to get a file review so they can let you know what it is that you need to work on. Of course, if grades was a big component, think about it. Is it possible for you to increase your GPA by September? To me, that's impossible. Of course, unless you can take tons of courses during the summer, which that to me, you're killing yourself trying to do that. To me, it's better for you, if you need to increase your GPA, it's better for you to just take a year off and work on increasing your GPA if you're able to take further courses. If you're unable to take additional courses to help increase your GPA, that means you want to focus on all the other factors. So looking at your experiences and looking at what you can gain more of. So of course, gaining more veterinary experience is good, but maybe you didn't have as much community service, or you didn't have a lot of extracurricular activities. Focus on those areas. Maybe you didn't have the best essay. Focus on that. To me, it's always a balancing act. You want to make sure that you understand every admissions process for every school that you're applying to. So you know how much they weigh GPA, you know how much they weigh your experiences in your interview. You want to know all of that information so that you can know what it is that you need to do. Because maybe, like I said, if you have a low GPA, you're going to have to balance that with your other components. So your non-academic components in the interview, you're going to have to make sure you dot every I, cross every T. They have to be perfect so that you know that you can make yourself competitive. So I'm going to, of course, have time for you to ask questions. But what I want to do was also to somewhat talk to you all a little bit about my journey in vet med. So of course, like I said, I went to Jackson State for my undergraduate degree. However, I did not start off at Jackson State University. When I first started my undergraduate career, I started at a PWI, a Christian college. And it was a good school, but I was not prepared whatsoever. It was a huge cultural shock for me. I came from a high school in which I wasn't prepared well for college. So that was big for me. So I went to undergrad at PWI, and I did not do well. And it came to a point in which I took a step back and had to really think on, is this something that I really want to do? Is vet med for me? Because every time I tried to go to gain experience or do anything, it seemed like everything was failing. I mean, I talked to my advisor, they were saying, you need a plan B, you need to do something else. This is not for you. Or I could not find a place to gain veterinary experience. So it got to a point where I withdrew from all my courses. I was going to be done. But I had this one thing that came to mind. I was like, Brittany, if this is what you want to do, you have to find a way to help yourself. You can't rely on someone else to assist you. So you need to find out what it is that you need to get to your point, to where you want to be at. So what I did was I took that one day and I found the program. I Googled and I found the program at Michigan State. And that program was called Veterinary Bound. And at the time when I applied for this program, I had a GPA of a 2.8. And of course, most of the time, a 2.8 GPA is pretty much probably the minimal that any school will take to, even apply for vet school. And I knew for me, I was like, 2.8 is not going to get it. But this program, the minimal GPA to apply to this particular program was a 2.8. So I was like, oh, this is for me. So I applied. And this particular program were for underrepresented students that were well qualified for a career in veterinary medicine. So I applied to this. Mind you all, I have never, at that time, I had never gone out of the Mississippi by myself before. So, and I was scared about applying just because of those reasons. But my family was very encouraging, and they told me, no, if you apply, you get accepted, we're taking you. So I applied and I got accepted. So what I did was, once I found out that I was accepted, of course, those courses that I had applied to, the courses that I had withdrawn from, I pretty much focused on getting back in the courses that could help me, that was a prerequisite that I could use to apply to vet school. And I withdrew for the rest of them because I felt as if, you know what, I'm going to need a fresh start once I get back from this program. So like I said, I, stayed in prerequisite courses in which I was going to need for vet school, and I withdrew from the rest. And I went to Michigan State for the summer. So this was the summer of 2010, which I went to this program. And when I say to you, y'all, this program helped me tremendously. It really did. I feel as if I would not be where I am today without this program. It would have taken me a little bit longer, maybe take that back, a lot longer, if I did not have this program. But in this program, it brought students from around the world that looked just like me or had the same types of backgrounds as me to help, gain experience or gain all the knowledge needed to apply to veterinary school. So of course I did various wet labs, did clinical rotations, gave presentations based on cases in which I saw in their clinic. I also took courses, so animal science, physics, courses in which usually are prerequisites to applying to veterinary school. And like I said, this was I think 2-month program. And so I spent about 8 weeks there. And like I said, it helped me tremendously. I was able to meet current deans. Like I was able to meet Dr. Ruby Perry, Willie Reed. I was able to actually meet Dr. Kennedy from NC State. I was able to meet a lot of important people in the profession, and they provided me with great advice that, like I said, I'm still utilizing today. So that was the thing, that this was the program that helped me. And the thing about it, all that I gained from that particular program, I realized that, oh, I had to help other students as well. So when I left this particular program, I realized that I needed to do more. So my three objectives that I left with was I had to be an advocate for students who lacked resources needed to help them be successful, that I had to expose underserved students to the veterinary profession through community outreach, and that I was going to be the uncommon veterinarian that I always wanted to be, one that will inspire others, that the sky's the limit to what they can achieve. So those were my objectives, and these are the same objectives that I still have today as I am going throughout my career. So for you all, what I encourage you to do is to be your own advocate. Like I said, I basically I had a 2.8 GPA. When I came back from this program, I knew what I needed to do. I transferred to another institution, and I worked my butt off. I pretty much was taking 19 to 20 hours each semester, while also doing research, doing other extracurricular activities, and working a basically full-time job. Y'all, when I say that I was working at PetSmart and then working at Best Buy, I was then also gaining my experience at a veterinary clinic that was able to be found through my one of my advisors. So I was doing all these things at the same time. Was I tired? Yeah, I was pretty tired. However, I knew I was on a mission and I had to succeed, and I was not going to let anyone tell me that I could not do this. So what I say, you have to believe in yourself. You have to be your own advocate. You can't be scared of failing. You're going to fail sometimes, but as long as you get back up again, it's totally fine. And who's going to remember that failure? No one. Always strive for excellence and to be the best that you possibly can be. Anything in which you do, strive to be the best. Don't delay your own progress. Sometimes it's easy to be defeated, especially if you have applied to veterinary school before. It's easy for you to feel as if, oh, I can't do this. I need to change. No, if this is the profession for you, you definitely want to continue to work on all in which you need to work on to get to your end goal. Don't give up. You may have to change how you do things, but that's totally fine as long as you reach your end, your goal. And then you want to also surround yourself with individuals that are going to motivate you and going to hold you accountable. You don't want to be around people in which is going to constantly discourage you or tell you that you can't do it, that you need to think about something else. You don't need that. You need to be around people that are positive, that can help you and assist you in any way they can so that you can achieve your goal. Because like I said, that you don't need no negativity. That's why I leave it at. You don't need no negativity right now when you're trying to reach your goal, and your goal being veterinary school. So I'm gonna leave it with that. And here you see, failure is not an option. It was not an option for me, and it's definitely not an option for you all. So if this is what you want to do with your life, with your career, you can do it. Just continue to be positive, to be open for critiques. Anyone, when someone is telling you some things in which you need to do, be receptive of those things and try your best to be flexible, because veterinary medicine, you do have to be flexible. So definitely try your best to remain positive along this journey, because this is a journey. For me, I applied one time. I was grateful enough that I applied one time, and I only applied to 2 veterinary schools. Applied to Mississippi State and Tuskegee, and I fortunately got into both schools and ultimately chose Mississippi State. But I really didn't. I wasn't scared when I applied. I felt as if I had been well prepared by that program that I attended. For you all, you can find those things if you need it. There's so many resources around here that you can utilize to get you to the point that you want to be. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and to allow you all a chance to ask questions, because I'm sure that you all have quite a few questions. It is some things that I didn't kind of touch on, but I know, like I said, that you all possibly would ask me.
All right, don't be shy. You can unmute.
I have a question.
Go for it.
So this is Brittany Melton speaking from Tuskegee University.
Uh-huh.
So I noticed you mentioned your mentor or the veterinarian that you asked for a letter of recommendation. You should possibly at least know them for a year. So my question is, what if personally I moved around a lot and I'm recently just getting a solid mentor because I'm finally in a solid place to write me a letter of recommendation. So this person, I contacted them and asked them asked them that I would need a letter of recommendation for veterinary school and just allow me to show them my drive, me as a person, so they can write me a letter of recommendation for vet school. And he agreed, but I have not known him for a year, and I just started volunteering under him at the beginning of February. So what is your advice for that? Because I don't have a veterinarian mentor that I've known for a year.
Definitely. So what I would do, so for you, that person in which you said that you have, of course, that person should, you have a cover letter for them, as well as a resume that includes all the information about you. Basically, you want to give that to them, and then open yourself up for them to ask you questions so that he can build a better relationship with you and know you to be able to write that letter of recommendation. So that would be the thing. Of course, I know that everyone can't get someone that they have, known for that time, but you want to make sure that you're doing all that you can to get as much information as possible. Make sure that person has everything they need to be able to write that letter of recommendation. And then for you, you might also want to utilize the explanation statement and say, hey, my letters of recommendation, one of my recommenders have known me less than a year, but I provided them with this information and they thought they had enough information to be able to write my letter of recommendation. That could be something that you could do as well. So you're thinking about that, knowing that, and then of course addressing that just in case a committee member has that question. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. I have one more question.
Yes.
So I noticed you said that you should submit you said you should submit the VMCAS application in August. So I'm taking the GRE again, but like at the end of July. Do you just enter your GRE score into the VMCAS, or does it take like a long time to process into VMCAS? How does that work?
What really happens is pretty much you get that score sent to VMCAS. So just like you send your transcript to VMCAS, the GRE works the same way. They will send your score to VMCAS. So depending on, you might want to check and see when you have your score and how long it would take for them to get that score submitted to VMCAS. That's one thing that's the first thing that you want to know. But that would not interfere to when you actually submit your application. When you submit your app, of course, that's all the information that you could provide, your transcripts, your letters of recommendation, as well as your standardized testing. All of that does not have to be submitted prior to you submitting your application. So that's something to remember when applying. And like I said, you don't have to stick to that August date, but I usually say at least possibly 4. That's usually my go-to is 4 weeks prior to the application closing, 2 weeks minimum. But 4 weeks is usually that area that I tell students, try to apply by then. Because think about it, the closer it gets to that deadline, more students are, of course, going in doing things. So they're increasing. VMCAS is trying to verify transcripts. So they might not necessarily verify your transcript prior to the application deadline. So if it's something they find wrong with your application, it's nothing that you can do then. Because they haven't verified, it has been verified after the deadline. So that's the reason why I say to try to get all those things submitted early. And just to remember that, like I said, standardized testing, your letters of recommendation and transcripts, they don't have to be, with VMCAS by the time you submit your application.
Okay, thank you. I have just one more little question.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you have any social media handles like Instagram or LinkedIn that I can follow you on?
I have a LinkedIn. Yes, I have to do better with social media. I have to be honest. I have to do better
And-
with it.
And I'll plug Black DVM Network here is we have a chat feature on the website. You can follow her on the website. You can ask her questions on the website. And then our success members also have a platform to connect on. So this is exactly what Black DVM Network is for, so that if Dr. Moore Henderson doesn't want to be, like, if she wants to be off the grid and make herself available to Black DVM Network, she can. But obviously that's only available to members. So
Thank you.
And what I would do is, because I don't mind you contacting me. That, like I said, I want to be a resource definitely to any student that is trying to get into veterinary school. So what I am going to do, I'm going to put in a chat my email address so that you can reach out to me at any time. And then, of course, like Tiara said, you can definitely get me through the website as well, too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But like I said, I got to do better with social media. I am struggling with it right now.
Dr. Henderson, congratulations on your accomplishment and your achievements. I'm just so grateful and happy to see living proof of someone who's gone through something as challenging as you have and have made it, through the other side based on much of because of persistence. And like you said, you were your own advocate. And that's just, I just need you to know that that's giving me a lot of hope and beyond motivation, but it's like feeding my drive. So thank you.
No, at all.
My question is, with your thanks. With your presentation, I got in at the point where you were just moving from your slide of you had a bunch of things. Did you already go over each of those parts of your slide where it said something about the application, like it had the timeline, I think? Did you already go in depth into those?
Yes, if you want me, I can pull that back up for you.
No, it's okay. If there's a replay, then I will catch the replay.
Okay.
yeah, we're recording this, and we'll send out the link. It'll be in the forum on our channel, on our YouTube channel.
Okay, thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
I have two questions. The first question, I just want to piggyback off of the GRE.
Mhm.
I've been having like a hard time setting aside time for that and like studying. So do you have any recommendations to like, I don't know, balance studying for that as well as being in school and then like the actual application itself, especially as a person who's like not the best at standardized tests as it is?
Oh, I totally understand. And that one part that I did not add to this was, yes, at the time in which I applied, I had to take the GRE. And standardized testing is not my strong suit at all. But for me, what I personally tried to do was try to set aside at least an hour a day to study. Of course, that's a difficult test to me. I'm sorry, it is. And what it is a struggle and pretty much a lot of vocabulary and all those things. So it's pretty much you trying to get cards and, constantly trying to go through, learn new words and such. It's a struggle. It's definitely hard. But like I said, you have to set aside some time at least to do it. So depending on when you're about to take the test or need to take the test, that determines how your timeline of what you need to do to prepare for that test. So say for instance, if you're going to get ready to take it in July, right now, you have about 4 months to study for it. So depending on, you get you a book. That's what I got me the updated GRE testing book. And I divided up that time and try to study as much as I can on a day. Of course, we know that you are taking courses right now, undergrad courses. So trying to juggle that's going to be difficult. But what I would say is something that you can do if you're still gaining experience. If the experience is something that you don't necessarily have to do right now because you have tons of hours or something, maybe it's something that you may have to let go for right now so that you can better prepare yourself. So look at the things like all the experiences that you have. You know, if it's something that you don't need anymore or continue to do, maybe you just let go of that for this time being so that you can focus on studying for the GRE. That's how I would definitely approach that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. And
Yep.
then my second question is, what advice do you have for the interview process? Because that's something I'm also kind of nervous about.
Yes, so it just depends on the school in which you're applying to and what their interview process is. Of course, I know we have the MMIs. We also have the traditional interviews, and now we're starting to use a program called Casper. So just depending on what school you're applying to and what interview process they have, determine how you can prepare for it. I personally don't know anything about the MMIs. My school, we do traditional interview. And with the traditional interview, it's pretty much just trying to get to know you better. So pretty much being up to date on the happenings, what's going on within the profession, current events, knowing about different ethical issues, knowing about how to work with others. How do you work with others? What is your style of leading? Those are the different things in which the committees, different schools want to know more about you. And then what it is that you want to do, what you see yourself doing, and what the impact that you want to have on the field of veterinary medicine. So ways that you can just prepare is, of course, being on top of that information, but then also going maybe to your career center or whoever, so that somebody can do like a mock interview for you. So that way it kind of gets you into the mode. I'm not gonna lie to you, and this one thing that my husband did for me at the time, he was my boyfriend. But I came in one day and he had set up an interview, like he had dressed up and everything, and went to asking me questions, and it took me, off guard, but it was something that I needed. He had researched various questions. Of course, we know that you have Student Doctor Network. I don't really recommend it too much, but they usually have some questions or things, but you can find various questions just by Googling common questions that are asked, like communication styles and different things like that. But he got me into that mode of thinking of how they would ask me questions and getting me to think about certain things, because you're not, some things you don't think about. Like some questions like, what are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? Like you don't think about how to answer those questions on a day-to-day basis. So he kind of got me to thinking about questions like that. And I definitely say that it helped me in the process. I wasn't as nervous because I felt like if I was prepared, I was used to somebody asking me questions, because he did that from that point all the way until my time to actually interview. And even my sister stepped in and helped as well. So having somebody that can help assist you in that endeavor, even your advisor, they can help you. Reach out to them because it will help you in that process. And the biggest thing what I tell students, just don't be nervous, be you, because they just want to get to know you better. And who knows you better than yourself?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I had a question about transcript submission. So with me having already graduated, I started taking like additional courses that I hadn't completed in my matriculation. So like biochemistry outside of that. However, I know you said that they only review transcripts once, and there are some schools that kind of require things like public speaking or like intro to animal science, things that I don't directly have access to and have been looking for. So if I were to take those classes, would it not count? Like I was a bit confused about the timeline of that. Would it not count towards submitting my application?
Yeah. So what I would mean about that, so say for instance for you, like you said, that there are some courses that you're still taking.
Mm-hmm.
So if, say for instance, in the summer, you're going to be taking some courses. Of course, the application deadline is September the 15th. That summer, that last summer session is going to be the last section or last grades in which can count towards your GPA for whatever school that you're applying to. So that transcript, that's the transcript that you want to submit. So I'm going to use this for example. I graduated from Jackson State, but I also attended another university. The university in which I previously attended, I'm going to go ahead on and submit that transcript because I'm not taking any more courses from that particular school. But from Jackson State, I'm going to be taking some courses during the summer. So that now that I know that I'm going to be taking courses during the summer, I don't want to submit the Jackson State transcript just yet. I want to wait until once I finish that summer section and that grade has posted to then submit it to MCAS. Because if I submit that Jackson State transcript during the spring, only that spring transcript and courses I took before the spring are going to be included within a GPA in which MCAS calculates. So that's the reason. It's not going to be something that's going to just hurt you. But if you want to make sure that all grades up until that point are counted, you want to make sure that you wait before you submit that transcript from that school in which you're currently taking courses from.
Mhm.
That makes sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's the only thing. But you don't, like I said, you don't have to do that. But for me, I always say you want to make sure that all your grades count because that fall semester, think about September the 15th deadline is falling right in the middle of the fall semester. So you're not going to have any of those grades to count. But you want to make sure that all that you have does count up until that point. So that's why I say to wait until that time before you submit it. And then also, if you are retaking any courses, it's going to be very important for you to wait until after you have finished taking those courses because some schools, they require that you take repeated or remediated courses prior to application. So you want to make sure to check with the schools in which you're applying to make sure they don't have some type of guide like that to say, that would disqualify you your application if you are currently repeating or remediating a course.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question concerning experience with vets. So one problem I had was that I've been having trouble trying to get experience with vets since my last application cycle. Like I'm having trouble finding vets that'll let me shadow, or vets that are willing to hire me to work in kennels and I can shadow them there. So I guess my question is, do you have any particular advice on how to find work with vets? Is there like particular vets that you think are more willing to help?
Yeah, so that's the thing. I would say right now, with COVID-19, that has closed a lot of clinics to shadowing. There have not been allowed people to come in and shadow, and you probably can't even get a job there, to be honest. So that's known. And of course, the admissions committee from all schools are aware that students possibly could not get any experience throughout this time. So for you, depending on how much experience that you currently have will determine on what schools that you are applying to. Like I said, majority of schools do not have a requirement, but there are some that do have a cutoff or a limit, a minimal limit to how many hours that you have. So you want to base your, whatever school that you're applying to based off of that. So knowing the hours you have. But if you're trying to gain some experience, what I would do, of course, we know that the Black DVM Network has a directory that you can utilize to see what veterinarians are probably around your area. But if you can't find anyone around you that, will allow you to come in to shadow, start calling them up. Just talk to them. Say, hey, I've been trying to gain some veterinary experience. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get into any clinics. Do you mind me talking to you about what it is that you do on a daily basis and so forth? You can go from that type of standpoint. And then you can look at what different schools are also offering too. I know for Mississippi State, we have a new program out that's called Vet Chat. It's a program where you actually are able to follow a veterinarian around. So we have done an ophthalmology one, and now we're about to do a one on primary care veterinarians, where you can actually see what they do. And then a week later, you're able to do a Q&A with them. So you're able to go and ask them questions about what they do. That's something, those are some things that you can think about. You have to pretty much think outside the box, especially due to COVID, because I know it has limited a lot of students and our ability to gain veterinary experience. But like I said, these schools, they know all about that. But like I said, depending on the number of hours that you have, that would be something in which I will determine whether or not you should definitely apply this cycle. So probably calling those schools and letting them know how many hours that you have. And they can kind of like gauge and let you know, well, maybe you probably should, you can go ahead and apply, or maybe you should wait another cycle to apply. Because of course, I'm hoping that we're towards the end of COVID-19 or getting close to the end of COVID-19 by the end of this summer, hopefully. Fingers crossed, and then things would start opening back up to allow students to begin gaining more experience.
Okay, that was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions about that, because I know that all students are struggling with that right now. Yes, and Melanie put in the chat about the Purdue program, and that's virtual. They have a virtual program that's year round, but then they also have a summer program. And just like you said, that was Purdue has the Vet Rebound program now that I spoke of about at Michigan State. So it's a little different, but it's the same, kind of same process pretty much. So if you're interested in doing a program similar to what I did, it's now at Purdue. Any other questions?
Hi, this is Nubia again. I have a final question about that experience. I just realized that while I may have experience, do I need to shed light on the timeline between that experience, or is it simply cumulative and that's all that schools typically need to know?
That's a good question, Nubia. So depending on, say for instance, if you're basically a non-traditional student and you've been gaining experience over a long period of time, but say the last 2 years, you have not gained any experience. The committee is definitely going to look at that. So what you will want to do is in your explanation statement, put, address that. Say, that you had, tons of hours of experience, but you've used these last couple of years to do whatever you have been doing. To increase your chances of getting into veterinary school. So you definitely want to bring that up, and it just you're wanting to paint a picture of yourself to the committee, and of course you're selling yourself as well. So you want to make sure that you include all the possible information that you can to allow them to make the best decision, because like I said, that application, you are selling yourself to them. So it's only so much that you can do to the application. So that's why you need to definitely work on it months in advance, so that you are getting everything across that you would want to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And one other thing that I also would add that I didn't mention for VMCAS, they do some seminars about applying to veterinary school. And if you go to that page and go to apply, they will send you to a website which shows previous seminars in which they have done, as well as the current ones that they're going to be doing for this current cycle. So like I said, VMCAS or AAVMC is a great resource for you all, so that you can gain more information. So definitely check that website out.
Any other last questions for Dr. Moore Henderson? You guys have asked a lot of really great questions, and this has been so helpful. I wish I had something like this before I applied to veterinary school. Luckily, I did have the Vet Rebound program, so
You went to Vet Rebound too?
yes. Honestly, we just missed each other by a year because I saw people in there that I knew, like Callie Jones.
Yes.
I did it with her, I think I was there in that next year. Wait, you did it in 20?
I did it in 2010.
Oh,
Callie was with me in 2010, but you know, they had the 3 programs. So I was like a mixture. I was like a hybrid between the first and second portion of it.
well, actually, I was there in 2013, so I guess we weren't that close. But I did it my first summer after starting college. So
yeah,
I was between my first and second year of college. It was
so awesome,
so amazing. So it breaks my heart that they're not doing it anymore. But yeah. So yeah, okay. Well, if there are no other questions, I would like to thank everyone for coming, but most importantly, thanking Dr. Moore Henderson for all of that information. That was so much good information. Again, this is being recorded. The recording will be up on our YouTube channel, and we'll be posting the link to that in the forum. So thank you guys again, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.